Alright, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Cyan Fiber, and welcome back to League Matchups, where we take two champions in League of Legends and pin them up against each other mano a mano and see which one the numbers say should come out on top. Today we're going to pin up Sejuani and Amumu. They're both tank junglers with similar kits, clear times, and gameplay styles. So let's see which one of these should come out on top. Sejuani never really got a chance to take off. She wasn't seen a lot in competitive play, mostly due to the fact that the counter jungles were very popular almost right after she came out, and Amumu used to be a top pick, but again, when counter jungling started to take shape, he sort of fell out of favor a little bit. But as characters like Nautilus are becoming more and more common, we're starting to see Amumu played a little bit more, and we'll see if Sejuani or Amumu will in fact be a better addition to your team, at least according to the numbers. Let's start up with their base stats. At level 1, Amumu is slightly better as a tank. He does boast a little bit more HP, 472 compared to 450, and he has barely more armor, 18 to 17 and a half, but it is a little bit noticeable with his clear time. Sejuani is a little bit stronger at level 1. She has 54 AD compared to 47 and slightly more attack speed as well, but Amumu clears with his abilities. Sejuani kind of clears with both, so she does need a little bit extra AD. While Amumu's base stats are slightly higher in terms of a tank, Sejuani's scaling is better. She gets 85 health per level compared to 40, and she gets 3.5 armor per level compared to 3.3. Now, that doesn't seem like a whole lot. 3.3 is decent, but taking into account that they have the same masteries and the same runes, Sejuani will have better resistances than Amumu will as the game progresses, but this is due to the fact that Amumu does have some innate tankiness that Sejuani does not, but we'll get into that in just a few minutes. Let's take a look at their passives now. Amumu's basic attacks will lower the target's magic resist by 15, 25, and then 35 for 4 seconds. This does not stack, but it will refresh every time Amumu lands an auto attack. If you were ganking mid, this is a great passive. Alternatively, it's a good passive for when you're ganking any lane, because all of Amumu's damage is going to be magic damage, so lower magic is certainly going to be good, but unless you're playing AP Amumu, your damage isn't going to be overly high, but it is certainly nice to lower an enemy's magic resist. If you could run a dual AP composition, this passive would be absolutely fantastic, but if you would do that, the enemy team could certainly see that you have 3 people that do magic damage and just start stacking magic resist, and then your AD carry really has to step up their game. Sejuani's passive, her basic attacks will apply Frost, which reduces enemy movement speed by 10%, but it also has to deal with her abilities a little bit more than Amumu's does. One of Sejuani's abilities cannot even be used unless her passive is activated, and then she will actually deal additional damage with another ability when there's Frost or Permafrost added to an opponent. I want to give the point to Sejuani again because I like CC over the lowering of magic resist. Early on in the game, Amumu's ganks will be stronger than Sejuani's because of this, especially if they both have red buff. Amumu can kind of keep auto attacking, which will proc that slow, which means he can keep that magic resist down, and he should be able to keep them in his cry and his tantrum, which can result in some pretty good damage. But Sejuani, I do like the CC, and I do like the fact that her passive really kind of affects her abilities a little bit more than Amumu's do, but I think this one is based off preference. I think they're both very good passives, and that one's kind of a push. Their Qs, they're both gap closers and pseudo skill shots. Amumu's is more of a skill shot. If it lands on an enemy, he will stun them and be dragged to them. It will deal okay damage, 80 at level 1 up to 320 at level 5, and it does have a 1-to-1 ratio. But it does require you to hit something. Sejuani is this charge gap closer. If she does hit something, she will deal a little bit of damage, 60 at level 1 to 210 at level 5 with a 0.4 AP ratio, but it will apply Frost. So enemies will in fact be slowed a little bit, and you can start using your other abilities. If you are capable of landing bandage tosses consistently, Amumu will take the point here. Sejuani's is a little bit easier to use. She can use it as an escape because she doesn't need to rely on hitting anything to create that distance or close that distance. But Amumu's does a little bit more damage. Obviously, both of these abilities are the last priority in your level up list, but Amumu is going to take this point because I like stun over slow, and if you can land it, it is a little bit better than Sejuani's, but that one's close. That one's close. Their W's is Amumu's is his cry. He toggles it. It will deal 24 damage per second plus 2.7% of the enemy's max HP for the obvious cost of mana per second. Has a range of 300. It also has a ratio where for every 100 AP you have, you will deal an additional percent of their max HP as damage. It's a 0.01% ratio. Sejuani's W is a 5-second AoE Frost Ring that has a range of 350, which is something of note, and it will deal double damage to enemies that are either frosted or permafrosted. The max damage that she can do is 60 at level 1 to 220 at level 5 with a 0.5 AP ratio, and she will also deal additional damage based off of her own max HP, 5 to 10%. Against a frosted target, she will do 90 to 330 damage with a 0.75 ratio and do 7.5 to 15% additional damage based off of her max HP. I have to give the point to Sejuani here because she deals additional damage based off how tanky she is as opposed to your opponent, and you don't have to drain your mana to use it. It's hit it once and it doesn't cost too much mana, and the fact that she can do double damage is pretty impressive as well. Unless you're M5, who I think most of us have seen that video with that 5-minute team fight around Baron. I don't remember who it was against though. Unless you're having one of those, Sejuani's going to do more damage because team fights, they're usually not too long. And in that 5 seconds, you're doing a lot more damage than Amumu is. He kind of needs to sit there and slowly drain health, whereas Sejuani does a little bit more damage. So, I'm going to give the point to Sejuani here, but in terms of their clearing, they're both about the same for jungle clears. Both champions will use other abilities as well, and I do think that as the game goes on, Sejuani will clear a little bit faster than Amumu can with her Q, W, and E combination. I know that she can easily clear race with that combo, just charging in, hitting W, and hitting E. So, in fact, sometimes you don't even need to hit W as the game goes on. So, yeah, Sejuani takes the point here. Their E's, Amumu's Tantrum, he will passively reduce damage by 2 to 10 based on its level, and when he activates it, he will deal a little bit of nuke damage, 75 at level 1 to 175, and has a 0.5 AP ratio. Sejuani's will only be activated when you have a frosted target, and it will apply permafrost, which will increase the slow of the frost to 30% at level 1 to 70% at level 5, and then it deals 60 to 260 damage with a 0.5 AP ratio. Sejuani's does more damage, and it applies a pretty good CC. 70% is pretty incredible, but that innate tankiness that Amumu gets, it helps with his early game clears, which Sejuani is notorious for having issues with. But I really like Sejuani as a whole because CC and better damage kind of make up for that 10 lower damage. Later in the game, that 70% is much better than that 10 lower damage per auto attack, especially because hopefully Sejuani can get a couple of items where that additional 10 damage per hit doesn't make as much of a difference as the CC that it applies. Sejuani's taking this point. Ultimates, Amumu, large AoE snare, lasts for 2 seconds, deals 150 to 350 damage with a 1-to-1 AP ratio. Sejuani, very similar to Amumu's, difference being hers is a ranged AoE stun. She kind of throws this ice ball flail thing forward. If she hits an enemy, that target is stunned for 2 seconds, while the other enemies around him or her are stunned for 1 second. Alternatively, it can go to a range and then it explodes and then everything it hits is stunned for 1 second. Damage 150 to 350, but it has a 0.75 AP ratio as opposed to a 1-to-1. I don't think there's any question on this one that I think Sejuani should take it, simply because it is ranged. She can use it to engage or disengage much easier than Amumu can. If Amumu wants to get a good ult off on 5 people, he either needs to flash ult or bandage toss in an ult, whereas Sejuani is capable of using it from a range and then engaging on it with her team that way. Or alternatively, if they're running, she can stop and throw the ult, and then her team has that extra time to escape. Whereas Amumu is going to be in the middle of them no matter what. Sejuani, I think, like I said, there's no question there. She's got to take the ultimate. Ranged, certainly better than not ranged, and she can use it without having to use a summoner or another ability. So, Sejuani, once again, gets the point, which means she is in fact ahead a fair amount. But if you look at things from a gameplay standpoint, both champions pretty similar. They both have good clear times, and they both kind of, once they get the ball rolling, can be really devastating for the opposing team. But I think Sejuani does so a little bit better because she can build straight up tanky, and her damage isn't going to really suffer because of it. If anything, her W is going to do more damage, and she starts to become really difficult to kill. Whereas Amumu, if you want to start to build him to do more damage, you're going to need items like an Abyssal Scepter. You might want to get some other AP items. Sejuani, straight tank, kind of helps peel a little bit. She does have some good slow. She can be in the middle of an opposing team. Mumu can as well, but she can do it, I think, a little bit better. I think the added CC that she brings, yes, it slows compared to stuns, but it's reliable, and I think that is the key. If Amumu had reliable stuns outside of his ultimate, which isn't really even a stun, then he would be the winner here. But today, the boar stands tall, and Sejuani rises up and shouts, "I am victorious." Maybe we'll start to see Sejuani played a little bit more. I'd like to see it. I think she's a very fun champion. She takes the win today. If you disagree, please let me know in the comment section below. And if you have suggestions for a future matchup, I'd love to hear from you as well. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know so that I'll continue to do them. But for now, my name is Cyan Fiber, and I will catch you next time.